To believe that a media outlet has an agenda, a plan, a goal, objectives would be correct. Yes, media outlets do have agendas like any other organization. A media outlet has a mission and they want to report news the way it is designed to satisfy that mission, right? So let's take these mission statements into consideration. Fox News Media offers its audiences in depth news reporting, along with opinion and analysis encompassing the principles of free people, free markets, and diversity of thought as an alternative to left of center offerings of the news marketplace. Then there's the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Their mission was to ensure universal access to non commercial, high quality content and telecommunications services. Let's look at the New York Times. Their mission says, "We seek the truth and help people understand the world." This mission is rooted in our belief that great journalism has the power to make each reader's life richer and more fulfilling, and all of society stronger and more just. And then there's our very own, the Louisiana Weekly. Their mission is to serve the African American community by providing news ignored by the mainstream media, documenting Black life, promoting justice, and advancing equality, essentially acting as a historical record and voice for disenfranchised people of color in Louisiana and beyond. So I use this example often when I talk to people about media and how media works. Let's say that you have a story about a Black man, all right? And what happened in this situation is that a Black man saw a burning building. He ran inside, he saw a little white girl, he saved her, and then he brought her out of that building. Of course, that's how he saved her, right? So that story could be painted differently depending on the mission of the outlet. So here's how I imagine Fox News may run this headline: Ex-con let loose on streets, runs into burning building. Again, this is my guess. All right, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. A headline from them might have read, "Good Samaritan heroically runs into burning building to save girl." All right, let me take a stab at what the New York Times may write. "Man runs into burning building to save girl." And the Louisiana Weekly, I imagine a headline from them on this situation may be, "Black man risks life to save little white girl from burning building." So the way media outlets disseminate their information relies heavily on how they want to fulfill their mission, thereby satisfying whatever their agenda is. Now, understanding the presence of agendas is not a bad thing. The way we take a look at an agenda when it comes to a news organization or any kind of media outlet is an example of media literacy. It's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. It is our interpretation of what we are seeing and hearing. And so, what I want to cover with you really quickly in talking about media literacy is what media literacy is, how media influences us, and then also the role that we play in media influence. Now, the definition, when you take a look at media literacy, I actually like the definition by Media Literacy Now, and you can read this at medialiteracynow.org. But Media Literacy Now views media literacy as the ability to, one, decode media messages, including the systems in which they exist, two, assess the influence of those messages on thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and three, create media thoughtfully and conscientiously. So, why am I even doing this commentary? What's the big deal? Well, the shuttering of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is tragic and is deliberate. This is a big step toward the removal of as many neutral and reasonable voices, in my opinion, as possible in mass media. Another reason that I want to do this is to highlight the ubiquitous nature of mass media and its influence on us. So, take into consideration what parts of media are and the types of media we have. So, first, you have your traditional print media, hard copies, newspapers, books, flyers, trifolds, etc. And then you have broadcast media. Hello, that's what you're listening to right now, TV and radio. And then you have digital media, podcasts, websites, social media, streaming services, etc. Now, you also have what's called out of home media, billboards, banners, signs, the things that you see when you step out of your home, and they are plastered on some kind of hard copy surface. And then you have film and video, which gets a little bit into entertainment, but sends messaging nonetheless. Movies, video games, TV shows, etc. And I also like to include, when it comes to the types of media we experience, I also like to include music. You could, again, look at it as entertainment, but there are messages in music that we can pay attention to, even if the artist doesn't intend to send a message. But we also have to understand how media outlets are controlled. Now, I'm going to use this acronym called PESO. This is something that we use in communications and marketing as far as how we want to send information out to people. But it's good for you to know this so you can understand what actually does control the messaging. So the P in PESO is paid media. This is information that you and I receive because it was paid for. It's advertising. It is disseminated by way of selected channels. But then also there is E, earned media. This is information that you and I get because it was covered by news outlets, or it is driven by public relations. It is driven by persuasion from the source. So when I was a communications and marketing director, a big part of my job was to get as much earned media as possible. That was me sending information out about the colleges and universities where I worked, and hoping that what would happen was that a news outlet would pick up that information. We earned the media. All right, the S, there is shared media, information disseminated through collaboration. And most often, this is done on social media. So, community building is really big here, because what you want to do is you want to persuade people to share the information here. And then there is owned media, the O in PESO. That's where information is being disseminated by way of an organization on its platforms, radio, websites, social media, TV stations, etc. So when, again, I was doing my communications and marketing thing, the way that I prefer to control messaging was through owned media. I was really, really big on making sure that the website was ground zero for the information that the universities where I work disseminated that information. I wanted the website to be the thing, because I wanted to bring people to our territory to read our information. And secondary was social media to me. So when you take a look at how the messaging that we get, the information that we get, is controlled, knowing that somebody either paid for it, knowing that a news outlet decided to carry the story from someone else, knowing that a community is sharing the information with one another, or knowing that you have that organization or that entity owning that information and controlling the messaging themselves. I think that is extraordinarily important to understand about how we receive the information that we get. But also, we need to think about this, and this is another reason that I think this commentary is important, is we spend hours, hours consuming media in all of its forms. Would you like to take a guess how many hours per day we consume media according to studies? If you said 7+ hours, you are exactly right. So think about this. what would you say is the most effective way for people to consume media, or at least I should say one of the most popular ways for people to consume media? If you said YouTube, you would be right. It's not the top, but it is definitely one of the most effective. Have you ever been around someone who is just watching YouTube and they're just watching video after video after video after video after video after video? By the way, I would like the way forward to be in that rotation. But have you ever seen that or heard that before? Because I'm going to tell you something. I have been one of them. I haven't gone for 7 hours, but I have definitely gotten caught in the abyss where I would watch this one video and then it rolls into another video. And then I look at the right margin where the other videos are, and I'm going, ooh, I want to take a look at that one too. Or if I'm looking on my cell phone, I'm going, ooh, let me scroll down and take a look at that one too. That is how much influence that media outlets have on us. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. So let's suspend judgment really quickly, and let's just think about what the factors are here as far as influence is concerned. So let me go ahead, and if you're a sister, I'm probably going to get you a little heated right now with what I'm about to talk about. By the way, you're listening to The Way Forward. I'm Eddie Francis, and we are talking about understanding media, kicking off a media literacy series, and understanding what the influence is like. So, if you take a mixture of the factors that I just talked about, all of these factors play a significant role in both what we think and even how we think. So here's an example. And I actually brought this example up on the Good Morning Show a couple of weeks ago. So there was in 2015 a white paper that was produced by the American Advertising Federation and Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. This is actually one of my favorite talking points when we talk about media influence. And what happened is that Zeta Phi Beta was concerned about the images of African Americans and the effects of those images on public perceptions and policies. Well, one of the most important studies on media influence that I've ever heard, and I have to tell you, when we take a look at why I believe this is so. So, what the American Advertising Federation and Zeta did is they co-sponsored a series of watch parties that were focused on the impact of media images. So during these watch parties, participants examined the state of African American images in media, their effects on public perception, and the role that people of goodwill can play in driving change. And that's what they wanted the outcome of this thing to be. And following the watch parties, there was a series of national panel discussions that followed up and got some feedback from folks, but then also talked about some of the conversation that happened at the watch parties and after the watch parties. Well, when the white paper was produced, here's what it explored: three things: research theories to understand current media effects, also connections between the advertising industry and images displayed in ads and in programming, with a targeted focus on advertising ethics. And then also suggestions from the watch party participants to tackle the problem of media misrepresentation. And here are the key points that came out of that white paper. And I'm going to read these key points to you. So the first one is, as the white paper wrote, the source of many Americans' information about people outside of their social circles is derived from various media outlets. So just stop there and just even think about that. That the source of many of people's information about people outside of their social circles is derived from various media outlets. So Here's another part of the white paper that I thought was really interesting where they wrote, for example, local news outlets grossly overrepresent African Americans reporting instances of crime per Media Matters for America. This overrepresentation translates into people's beliefs about African American criminality. Aren't we seeing that right now? So here's something else that the white paper wrote, and there's a couple other parts here that I think are very important. These mischaracterizations may create disproportionate hiring, housing, and loan options for African Americans. Caucasian high school dropouts have the same chances of getting hired as African American college students. And African Americans with no criminal record are less likely to be hired than Caucasians with a past felony. So, what perspectives were gathered from these watch parties? What the white paper reported was that overwhelmingly, watch party participants recognized three African American woman personas that impact the African American community, as well as the way African American women are viewed and treated within the broader US society. So, the first persona was the reduction of African American womanhood, where aggressiveness, excessive materialism, and hypersexuality were promoted. Second, diminished respect for African American women. It's believed that non African Americans typically expect the worst and anticipate the most outrageous behavior as the norm when they interact with African American women. This could impact hiring and advancement decisions and the ability of an African American woman to be taken seriously as a leader within an organization. And then another archetype that was created or that folks saw here through these watch parties is the new road to success for the African American woman. By default, reality television actors have become role models for some African American teenage girls and young adults who emulate their dress, speech, interpersonal skills, or lack thereof, and their attitudes towards sex, money, and material possessions. I'm going to put a link to this study in the Way Forward group with Eddie Francis on Facebook so that you can check it out for yourself and you can see which programs they took a look at. But let's add to this an uncomfortable truth. The uncomfortable truth, and I think this is about as American as apple pie, is that toxic behavior sells in this society. And that has been the thing for the longest. People like watching slow train wrecks on television, especially, but they like watching it on social media as well. That's what people respond to. I've told this story on the air before that there was a talk show that I produced years ago. And before the talk show started, I had a conversation with the host. And in the conversation, I said, okay, you're going to have to decide what you want this talk show to be. If you want this talk show to be entertaining and you want phones ringing off the hook, then you are going to have to poke people's nerves with things. You're going to have to draw their ire at times. But it's going to be this extreme emotional roller coaster ride. Happy, happy, happy to the nth power, or you're going to have to scare the daylights out of people or something. But whatever it is, you're going to have to get an extreme emotional reaction to get those phones ringing. And if your goal is to get the phones ringing, then that's how you get it done. Or you can choose a show that is thoughtful. And if you choose a show that is thoughtful and educational, then the trade off is this: the phones won't ring as much. It won't be as exciting. You're not going to get the immediate response that you're looking for. What's going to happen is that people are going to listen to you a lot of times, and they aren't going to be as vocal in their response. So which one do you want? Do you want the phones ringing off the hook, or do you want people to learn something? Which one? Because when the phones are ringing off the hook, it's going to be hard for people to learn. Everybody's busy talking. If you want people to learn and they're not calling as much, then you're going to get a result. It's going to be from a different type of audience. So you got to decide what you want. Algorithms are designed for audience responsiveness. This is what we have seen. Algorithms are designed to respond to likes, shares, downloads, watch times, right? I brought this up earlier with YouTube. These algorithms are built to analyze our behavior, our interests, our interactions, to personalize feeds, predicting what content will best capture and what's going to hold attention, which often means that people are going to be emotionally charged and is going to be showing the emotionally charged or sensational type of material. So I'm like everybody else. I got caught in the vortex and the abyss of this crazy post and that crazy post. I look at my TikTok or my Instagram and I'm going, why is all this stuff popping up? Oh, well, it could be because I got into the fitness craze a couple of weeks ago and I started watching every single fitness video that I possibly could. So now my algorithm has told me that I like to watch half naked people, all half naked people who are working out. That's what happened to me. Switch, switch, switch. Nope, I'm going to switch to panda bears eating carrots. That was my way of de-stressing. Panda bears. So a bunch of panda bears started showing up on my feed, and dogs and bears and sloths and all kinds of other cute stuff. So the question you ask yourself in this situation is, what comes first? Is it the toxic behavior that's influencing mass media, or is mass media causing toxic behavior? The answer is yes. And yes. Both things are true here as far as I'm concerned. We always forget that we have something to do with the conditions that we are in. That doesn't mean that we're the cause of the conditions, but we have to think about the part that we play in conditions. For instance, people who did not vote in the past presidential election and are upset about what's going on. Now, I know for those of us who voted, our response to them is, well, you should have voted. But let's be fair. Part of the reason they didn't vote is what they saw in media. And what you see in media during campaigns, during political season, is dizzying. We know this about political campaigns, that they don't take off until somebody slings mud. Somebody's got to do it. Why? Because that's when everybody gets interested. So we play a part in those conditions, even though we may not have caused those conditions. Sometimes the part that we play is we perpetuate those conditions. So what can we do? I mean, what is a person to do when we are so surrounded by media? Well, the good part of this is that we do have control. We have so much more control than we think. And for my money, it all starts with us discussing what we see in media with our family, with our friends and our colleagues, and doing it absent of emotions. And some of the things that we can do here, if we go according to the definition of media literacy that I shared earlier, I mean, let's talk about decoding the media messages. What does that mean for us, for you and me? It means our asking the question, who created this? Where did this come from? And then going deeper and finding out the mission of that organization, and ask yourself if the source is honoring its own mission, even. And I think we tend to forget that organizations are behind what we are seeing and hearing in media. I am on WBOK right now, a subsidiary of Equity Media. You hear that all the time. I am part of Equity Media's mission, right? Okay, second part, assessing the influence of those messages on thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Asking ourselves, what techniques are grabbing people's attention? What's grabbing my attention? When something aggravates my spirit or gets me ready to pick up a pitchfork or a torch, pause. Why is this information that I'm seeing causing me to act in that way? Why is it when they sound the alarm about this person, instead of asking why are they sounding the alarm, I jump on board and I say, yep, we got to go get them. Create media thoughtfully and conscientiously. Just because folks are acting like clowns for clicks doesn't mean we have to act like clowns for clicks. And then continuing this line of questioning with ourselves when it comes to consuming media, what we can do is we can ask, when we consume media, what values, viewpoints are represented? Why was this made? How might different people interpret this? This is not about cynicism, by the way. I do not want you to tap out. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to get engaged in some way. And that doesn't mean, calling the television stations or writing or emailing Meta or some organization and going off. I mean, you can. It's not a bad idea. If you disagree, you can. I can tell you, as someone who's worked in the industry for 30 plus years, if folks are making traction, if they're making money, then your complaint might as well be a gnat. However, what media outlets do respond to is having fewer eyes and ears on their stuff. That's what media outlets respond to. So there's a daily habit that you can practice so that you can gain control of how you consume media. Pause before sharing. Diversify the sources that you are taking a look at. Recognize emotional manipulation as well. And then finally, again, I say communicate with each other.